As the lights are going down, how many people are using DaVinci Resolve? Wow, okay. I love asking that question every year because the numbers get higher and higher, which is really exciting for us. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite new features in DaVinci Resolve 16 and demonstrate some of those for you. I'm also going to cover some of the new stuff that we just introduced with 16.1. So in a very uncharacteristic move for us, we announced DaVinci Resolve 16 at NAB with a new cut page, which we'll talk about in a minute. And we've been doing a public beta, and it went really, really well. Appreciate everybody that gave feedback. I'm sure some people in the room have been helping out with the beta tests. And we shipped 16 about a week or two ago, and at the same time, we introduced 16.1 as a public beta, which is because we just really needed to get a stable version out there for all the pros in the world, but we wanted to keep developing some of the great new features that we've been working on, specifically on the cut page, but also on the edit page and the color page and the other areas of the application. So the big news this year was the cut page. And what is this thing? The cut page is basically a second editing interface. So if you've not used Resolve before, at the bottom of the screen, there are icons which represent different pages in the application. So there's the media page for getting all of your stuff in. There's the new cut page, which is really designed for short form, fast turnaround work. So when you need to get something cut together quickly and get it online fast or get it out to an agency or whatever, the cut page is really where you want to be working. So there are some really great innovative new tools there that we're going to talk about. The edit page is our traditional editing interface, and that's where you would do some of your more sophisticated and complex work like your documentaries, your feature films, episodic television shows. Of course, Fusion for visual effects and motion graphics, Color for our color correction, Fairlight for audio, and then Deliver for delivery. So what you're looking at here is the cut page, and I'm going to start by showing you some of the new features we introduced with version 16.1. So in this example, I have a cooking show that was shot in Melbourne, and it's a multicam shoot. And this is really cool. We can now select all of our clips, click on this sync icon, and a new sync window opens up. So I believe we were talking about this earlier in Stump the Gurus. Somebody told me today you're either a guru or a stump, and not sure where that came from, but I decided I was going to steal it and appropriate it. All right, so here's the sync window. So what it does is it automatically looks at the metadata, and it says, okay, I see that you've got 4 different cameras here. Some of them had starts and stops, some of them didn't, and it gives me ways to sync them. I can sync them by their endpoints, which in this case is totally incorrect. I can click on the little waveform icon, and I can sync them by audio waves, and it analyzes and moves them all right into place for you. So really, really super easy way to sync your clips. And of course, you can sync by timecode as well if you've got your cameras synced with timecode. But this is a huge addition to DaVinci Resolve, and specifically to the cut page, because when we introduced the cut page with version 16 to do some of the smart editing features that I'm going to show you next, you really needed timecode synced cameras. And now they don't have to be timecode synced. You can sync in a variety of ways using this new window. So give it up for the sync window, people. Okay, so Michael called me entertaining, which is mildly inappropriate. But the thing is here, you have to laugh at my jokes. So, and the gratuitous applause is always welcome. Okay, so now that I have sunk these, you can see that there are little blue sync icons on the top left of all the clips. So now anytime I go through my timeline, if I click on my sync bin, it will show me what clips match timecode or are in sync with whatever frame I'm currently playing in the timeline. So if I scroll down, you can see I've got a couple of cameras coming on and off. For those of you that aren't familiar with the cut page, let me just explain what you're looking at here. In the middle of the screen, see this blue line? This represents the entire length of the program, and I'm just going to turn the audio off for now. So you can go from beginning to end of your program, and then in the bottom is another timeline which basically has a zoomed in area. It shows you the area in which you're working. So if you've ever worked in Resolve on the regular edit page, or even Final Cut or Premiere or Media Composer, you're always zooming in and out to move to different places on your timeline to figure out where you need to work next. You don't have to do that on the cut page because you've always got basically the full timeline in the middle and the zoomed in area where you're working at the bottom. So now I can see that there are 3 cameras that were running at this point in time. So maybe I want to switch to camera 3. It shows me camera 3 now. I can adjust the in and out points as I see fit. and then I can use the source overwrite, and that just drops a copy of it in sync right above the first track. So you can just really go along very quickly, and I can see, you know, maybe a little further down, or maybe at this point in my timeline I've got all 4 cameras going. So maybe I want to do the side angle here. I'm going to do source overwrite. We're going to move forward a little bit, and we're going to go, you know, you can basically go anywhere you want. Find this overhead shot. Just going to drop that in. Keep moving forward. Drop the side shot in. And as you can see, every time I do it, it's dropping in clips that are perfectly in sync with that bass track. So it's a whole new take on editing from multiple sources. It's not like a typical multicam viewer. It actually is intelligent about where it's dropping the clips on your timeline. And then, of course, I can switch back to my timeline view, and I can review those. So as I play this back, you can see that everything's in perfect sync. She's grabbing her lemon. She's about to squeeze it in there, or the salt, whatever she's doing. I actually haven't tried this recipe, but this footage is available on our website. So if any of you want to make this, and let me know how it is, I'd be happy to come over for dinner. Okay, so that is a little bit about the new sync features and the sync bin in DaVinci Resolve on the cut page. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to another project that isn't a multi-camera project to show you some of the other features. So let me just go to my demo here. And just so you know, I'm using a MacBook Pro. It's maybe a year and a half old, and I have one of our eGPUs plugged into it that we're using. So it's a pretty great system as far as performance is concerned, and I'm working with a combination of ProRes files at 1080 as well as Blackmagic RAW files at 4K. And you'll see that the speed is really great here on the system. So let's just dive into a little bit about the cut page now. So the general stuff I've already told you about, the timeline in the middle. So a lot of the things that we did were designed for speed of work. So if I need to find a clip, I can go into what's called source tape mode. And what that'll do is that will show me every single clip that's in my project. And if I go in and I go into a bin, it recreates the source tape based on the footage in the bin. If I go up a level, back to my master, it shows me all of the other footage as well. So this notion of a source tape saves you a ton of time because you don't have to go hunting through bins to find clips. You've got them all strung out right here. You actually don't even have to create, you know, a lot of times people create string outs or entire sequences with a day's worth of shots or something, and then you have like a sequence for every day, and then you make your selects and everything. You don't have to do that anymore because you just use source tape mode, and you can, you know, mark in and outs right here, and you can edit straight to the timeline just by doing this. So source tape is a really, really huge thing here. The other thing that we did with the cut page in 16.1 is we've put in something called the boring detector. Now, you may have heard about the boring detector. Oh, come on. Hissing? Really? Wow. Okay. No, it's not an Elon Musk thing. It's not a Michael Bay thing. It's really designed to help you create better video. So you get to define here edits longer than 100 seconds or 5 seconds or 4 seconds. You get to tell Resolve what you think is a boring clip. So even though it's called boring detector, you actually decide what the threshold is. And you know what? For those of you that hissed, if for no other reason, boring detector has people talking about Resolve. And I like that. So. The other section of this interface here at the bottom is called jump cuts, which is really about identifying flash frames. So you can say, show me, highlight any frames in the timeline that are, any clips in the timeline that are less than 5 frames, and it'll highlight them for you. So I've got that on now, and you can see here that this area of light gray, in this first clip that we're looking at, the dark gray is the first 5 seconds, and then the rest of the clip it's telling me, hey, this section is longer than the 5 seconds, so this must be boring. Right? So we need to fix that. So in order to fix that, here's a really cool feature. I can use the close-up button. I don't even have to go find a clip in the bin or do anything like that. I just press close-up like that, and it automatically finds the shot, finds the right time code, places it on top of the existing shot, uses the DaVinci neural engine to recognize the face and frame it appropriately for you. Come on, that's pretty cool. So I don't even have to match frame. I don't have to do anything. I just put it in here, and all of a sudden, it's not boring anymore. Look at that. It's almost like I had two cameras. So it's really cool. The other thing that you'll see is you'll notice this little white caret here in the timeline. This is it's an edit indicator. So a lot of the operations that we do on the cut page, like I said, are designed for speed. So instead of having to put the playhead exactly on an edit point, I can just be near an edit point, and it's saying, okay, if I wanted to add a transition, like hit the dissolve button, it's just going to put it on that edit point because that's the one that's closest to the playhead. So it's really cool, and if I want to take that out, I can just take that out as well. This is awesome. So the indicators in the timeline are really just to help you know where the edits are going to happen if you do them. So let's go find some more boring stuff. All right. So here's another really long clip, and you can see that it's really boring because the boring part is almost as long as the non-boring part. So so here we are. Let's just take a listen. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna mute my track so we just hear the dialogue, and let's listen to the clip, take a watch, and see what we can cut out of it.
Get the shot, or the weather wasn't right, we would either go back to that location, stay at that location longer, or it didn't make the movie. It was really important. Every shot was original, and that everything was real.
Okay, so that's pretty long. So I think we can cut some stuff out. So in 16.1, we added a new cut button so that while it's playing back, I can just click this cut button where I want to split the clip. So let's just do that.
We couldn't get the shot, or the weather wasn't right, we would either go back to that location, stay at that location longer, or it didn't make...
Okay, so I just made a couple of cuts, and I'm going to delete that. And it closes it up for me. It automatically ripples, so let's see what happens.
Go back to that location, or it didn't make the...
All right, so I need to trim this. The cut page is really cool because I can trim here in the timeline. I can also trim up here in the mini timeline, the overview. Everything is live at the same time. And I have a precision trimmer up in the viewer at the top right. So depending on how granular or precise you need to be with your trimming, there are multiple places in which you can do it. So let's just get this cut right.
Stay at that location, or it didn't make the movie.
And we just want to make the head of this a little longer, so we get the word or.
Go back to that location, stay at that location, or it didn't make the movie.
Okay, so great. We took out a few seconds. The clip is no longer showing as boring, so we're on the right path. But we've got a problem here because if you watch now, we have a jump cut, right? So
stay at that location, or it didn't.
His head does an obvious hitch.
At that location, or it didn't.
We could fix that. We have a button called Smooth Cut. So I press the Smooth Cut button, and it uses some optical flow magic. And I'm just going to make it a couple of frames to basically create an in-between animation and construct the pixels so that it looks like it was one continuous shot.
That location, stay at that location, or it didn't make the movie. It was real.
Come on, that's a cool one too. All right, you're a tough crowd. That's one of my favorite features, and we now have a button for it on the user interface. But I want, Michael said, you've got applause, and I'm sitting here thinking, I want more, right? Okay, so on the cut page, and I'm not doing a comprehensive demonstration of the cut page today, but I want to show you a couple of additional things. You've got your most common edit types right here on the timeline. So we've got the smart insert, which will basically do an insert at the location of the nearest edit point. We've got append at end. We've got the ripple overwrite, which replaces a clip of one length with a clip of a different length and automatically closes gaps. The close-up, which I've shown you, place on top, which does what its name implies. And then, of course, the source overwrite, which is what we did for that multicam. So if you have stuff that is sunk, you can use the source overwrite to insert a clip at the proper time in the timeline. So just really easy editing tools for working quickly. There's even a whole tool strip here, and let me go find another clip. I think I'm going to go to this one. So when you turn the toolbar on and off in the viewer, you have your basic transform controls, cropping, audio. There's even retiming. Let me select the clip first. You can go and do retiming, camera stabilization, lens correction, dynamic zoom, and effects. So everything can be accessed right from this page in DaVinci Resolve. So another thing that makes this really cool is, Resolve, like Premiere and Media Composer and all the other applications, it's pretty complex. There's a lot of stuff in there. You can start with Resolve, you can start learning how to use Resolve, and you can do just about everything you need to do on this page. And then as you need to go deeper and learn more, you can start exploring the other pages. So it's a great sort of starting point for a lot of people if you're new to it. So in this case, I want to maybe do some kind of an animation in on the shot, a reposition or something. So we've got the dynamic zoom feature. The green box is where it's going to start, and the red box, which is the outside area here, is where the animation is going to end. So I can say I want to start it there and basically create a really fast zoom into that shot. So let's see what it looks like. So no keyframes, just pick the start, the end position, press play, and you're done. So really cool stuff here. And then, oh, thank you. Thank you. So every time I say really cool stuff here is thank you, Pavlov. Right. Or I'm Pavlov and you're the dogs. I don't, you're not really. So in project settings, there are some image scaling options. And I just want to point this out to you because there are many different ways that we handle image scaling. But if you set to scale full frame with crop, you can do all kinds of cool things with the new version of Resolve, like change it to a square video. And you're never going to get, let me just turn this off so you don't have to see that. You're never going to get letterbox or pillar box lines. It's always going to scale to fit. So if I'm going to Instagram, maybe I want a square. Or if I'm going to a phone, maybe I want a vertical or a horizontal. So you can now just change the project resolution at any time, and it'll automatically scale the images so that they take up as much of the viewable space as possible. And if you want to go and finesse that and nudge things around and do repos, you can always do that, but it's a great way to just have it automatically do it for you so that most of the work is done. All right? And then when you are ready to export, you can do this from the cut page using the quick export button. And you've got a variety of presets. You can create your own presets on the deliver page if you want. But my favorite thing is that you can go right to YouTube or Vimeo from your timeline. So it will do the render, it will do the upload, it'll let you do the metadata tagging and all the stuff that you usually do when you upload to those sites, all in one fell swoop. So quick export is another really, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it. There you go. All right, so let's go look at a couple of other things. I'm going to switch to the edit page. So as I mentioned before, this is our regular edit page for your long format kind of stuff. And we've got some new options. I'm going to just resize my windows here. And I'm going to make my audio a little bigger because we're going to work on audio. We've got some new options for displaying audio waveforms. You can be rectified or non-rectified, which is kind of nice. And we've got some additional timeline options. You can have stacked and tabbed timelines, so like I have multiple timelines open at once, which we'll get into in a little bit. But what I want to do is I want to solo my dialogue, and I want to talk a little bit about audio. All right, so
Airplanes change the world.
let's just listen to a couple of these. You know what? I need to turn my mixer on. So here's our mixer, and this is the same mixer that you get on the Fairlight page. It's just a little smaller for the edit page. When you're editing dialogue, you basically want to keep it in the -12 dB range. So that's where the yellow area is on the meters.
If the weather wasn't right, we would either go back to that location, stay at that.
So you can see that this particular clip is a little hot. We're peaking in the red in a couple of places. And then if I go down here, this one is a little too low, right? So we've got our levels are all over the place. So we can now normalize on the edit page. So for those that don't know, normalization, it's kind of like white balancing for audio. It's basically getting all of the clips to a certain level. So I'm going to normalize the audio levels, and I can normalize based on the loudness standard to which I'm working. So there are different standards around the world for loudness, and I'm going to set mine to -9 dB for my target level. And what that means is it's going to take the loudest part of the waveform, and it's going to reduce that to -9 dB or lock that off at -9 dB. So we're going to do that, and now you'll just watch the waveforms. They're all going to change a little bit, and now they're all in the same general range.
If the weather wasn't right, we would either go back to that location, stay at that. It was really important every shot was original.
So you can see that we're hitting that yellow area, which is the sweet spot for our dialogue with all of them. So normalization and setting your loudness standard on the edit page is something new. It was available on Fairlight before, but now we've added that to the edit page. Okay, so the other thing that people ask us about a lot is, can you duck music? Is there a ducking feature? And the answer is yes. So let me turn the solo off, and I'm just gonna play the music with the dialogue. Okay, so the obvious problem here is that, listen to how bad this sounds.
We couldn't get the shot, or the weather wasn't.
So the sound and the dialogue are obviously competing. So I'm on the Fairlight page here, and for those that are new to Resolve, Fairlight is basically a complete digital audio workstation designed for professional television and film audio post-production right inside of DaVinci Resolve. So you don't have to round trip to another application. You don't have to, go out to, export a file, import a file, manage changes or anything. As I click through, whether it's the cut page, the edit page, Fusion page, which we'll get to later, the color page, it's one universal timeline in the app. There's no imports, there's no exports, there's no linking, there's no updating or refreshing. Everything is just live at the same time. So the timeline that I'm working with here is exactly the same as the timeline on the edit page. It's just this view is optimized for doing audio work. So on my mixer here, you'll see there's an area for dynamics. I'm going to just double click that to open the dynamics window. Now, dynamics gives us, in Fairlight, we have an expander, a gate, a compressor, and a limiter on every single track. So in this case, I'm going to select track 1, which is just highlighted gray, and you can see at the top of the screen, it says Dynamics Audio 1. If I select 2, it does Dynamics Audio 2. If I select track 3, it's Audio 3. So it just follows whatever my selection is. So what I want to do here is I just want to send from this compressor on track 1, which is my dialogue track, I just want to send that somewhere else. And the somewhere else that I'm going to send it to is my music track. Okay, so then we're going to tell the music track, which is track 3, to listen. And I'm going to set a threshold. And what it's doing is it's listening to the dialogue track, which is track 1, and anytime the music gets to above, say, 39 or 40 dB, it's going to compress it. And I'm going to set a compression ratio that's pretty high. And I'm going to adjust the attack, which is how quickly it changes the compression and how quickly it releases the compression. Okay? This is a really fancy way of saying, automatically make my shit louder and softer. Okay? So you send from the dialogue and you listen on the music and you set the ratio and the threshold. And then what happens is when you play back,
If it was possible to shoot it, we wanted to go shoot it. If we couldn't get the shot, or the weather wasn't right.
so you never have to keyframe or rubber band your audio again. So I think that is a huge, huge help. Part of what I wanted to show you tonight were things that editors can really use, that that are really going to be useful to you guys, because so often we come across people that are working on projects, and you look at their timelines and you see all of these keyframes for audio, rubber banding back and forth, and it's like, oh my God, you spent 3 days doing that, and you could have just done it in a minute or two. So this is some of the power that you get on the Fairlight page. And just to give you an example, if you really wanted to go crazy on the Fairlight page, you can go in and you can actually get down to the individual samples, and you can edit individual audio samples. It's just crazy what you can do here. So that is, look, it says pause to applause here. No, I'm just kidding. The question was, how much did Fairlight cost when it was standalone? I don't remember. I think it was at least $25,000. Well, with a console, without the console, it was in that 25, 35 range. With the console, of course, it was a lot more. And then, even DaVinci Resolve, just the color corrector software was, $2,500, $250,000 with the control panels 10 years ago, right? So, you think now you can get most of what I'm showing you today for free. We still sell panels and stuff, and even then, the panels, start at $1,000 for a color panel, and go up to $25,000 for the big advanced color panel that they use here in Hollywood to do, film and television shows. So yeah, this is a pretty amazing what kind of technology you're getting for this price. Back to the edit page. Another thing that we introduced with 16 are adjustment clips, and these are really some of my favorite things. So let me just go and get an adjustment clip. So what an adjustment clip does is it lets me apply an effect, a color correction to everything below it. So for example, if I open my inspector here and I say zoom, it's going to zoom everything below. And let me just dim my audio here so it's a little lower. I'm going to undo that though, because I don't really want to zoom that. But you can use this to do effects and things, and I'm going to go to our effects category, and I'm going to find our new vignette tool. I'm going to add a vignette to this. Now, I can adjust, of course, the parameters and everything. But the really cool thing about 16.1, and this is why I wanted to show you this, is I can now name my adjustment clip. So I'm going to call this Paul's vignette. And then I can go and put it back in my media pool, and I can reuse it. So let's say I want to have the same vignette on top of these other interview clips. I can just go and I can say, oh, place that on top. Boom. There's the vignette. So just super cool tools that really make it a lot easier to work. The other thing that we added is you'll notice in the effects library there are dozens and dozens of Resolve effects, and these are our GPU and CPU accelerated effects plugins in Resolve. We also work with third-party open effects plugins. But one of the things that we added to 16 and 16.1 now is the ability to keyframe any parameter of any plugin effect right here in the timeline. So in addition to all of the transform and cropping stuff that's always been there, I now can adjust the size or the anamorphism or the softness of my vignette. So if I wanted to change that over time, I can just go here and I can say, okay, let's add a couple of keyframes. And I'm going to just go make it small to start and big to end. And then I can play that back.
If we couldn't get the shot or the weather wasn't right, we would either go back to that location, stay at that location.
So another cool thing, Curve Editor, keyframes in the timeline, now works with all of your plugin parameters as well. Same thing on the color page. You can keyframe all of these effects on the color page. Okay, so I got a couple of more things that we're going to talk about, and then we can open it up to some Q&A. So on the color page, and let me switch actually to a different timeline because I want to show you some effects. We've got this really nice clip, and I'm going to go to the color page so you can see this a little better. Just going to make that nice and big. So these two kids are on a date, and there's this third wheel trailing behind them, and we want to get rid of that guy, right? You see where this is going, right? All right. So I'm going to show you how to do an object removal. And I'm actually going to do it, I'm not going to do it the easy way. I'm going to do it manually because I really want you to see exactly what's involved. Because so often, you know, we get up here on stages and we do the demo magic thing, and it's like, oh, look at how easy it is, right? I actually want you to see how much work is involved in doing this. So the first thing I'm going to do, and maybe I should just step back for a second. For those that don't know Resolve, this is the color page. Basically what you see at the top is your image. On the right is a node tree, so things happen in sort of a flowchart style here. And then across the bottom are all these different palettes with different tools that we use to work. So everything from curves to qualifiers to windows to isolate objects. We have these gorgeous new GPU accelerated scopes as well that have been redesigned in DaVinci Resolve 16. So I'm going to start maybe in the middle, and I'm going to just use my pen tool. This is so much easier with a mouse. I'm using a trackpad. Forgot my mouse. But I'm drawing the best possible shape that I can. Okay? So then I'm going to go to my tracker window, and I'm not even going to automatically track this. I'm just going to say, you know what? I'm going to manually animate it. So I'm just going to grab it. I'm going to move it. Maybe change the shape a little bit. I'm going to move it again. So we can, of course, automatically track things. I don't want you to think that we can't. But like I said, I'm doing it the hard way because I want you to see that the hard way is actually not terribly difficult. All right. And we'll move it there. Okay, so now when we play, you see that the shape is following him. And I can probably do a little better. I think it's a little too tight. It's probably a little too close to him here. So let's just pull that out a bit. All right. And maybe out a little bit here too. Okay, so that's our shape that we've drawn to isolate him. So this is the area that we're going to tell Resolve to work in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another node, and I'm going to add a serial node, which, as the name implies, is for breakfast. No, serial one after the other. And I'm going to take this little blue connector here. There's two connectors. There's a green connector that attaches them together, and that is the image data. And then there's a blue connector, and that is the alpha channel. So I'm going to take the alpha channel, which is our shape, and I'm going to send it into the next node, which is where we're going to do our object removal. So the whole premise of nodes is it allows you to separate different parts of the task that you're doing so that you can go back and easily adjust things without messing other things up. So I'm going to go into the Open Effects tab here. Same effects that you saw on the edit page, just here on the color page. And I'm going to just add the object removal. So I'm going to show the mask overlay. You can see the overlay, right? So now we're going to say, analyze the scene. So now it's using all kinds of fancy technology under the hood, AI, DaVinci neural engine, hard math that I don't understand. And in just a few seconds, it will have analyzed the clip. Now let's go back in the middle, and I'm going to just turn that off. Oh, what? He's gone. Okay, now you can see there's like little gray bits that are peeking out, and there's some cleanup work like that needs to be done. Well, I can fix that really easy by clicking on this Build Clean Plate button. Seriously, this is the extent. This is really the extent of the demo magic. Okay. So I purposely picked the shot because it's actually a pretty hard shot to work on because there's a lot of visual noise, with all the leaves and all the detail and everything in the shot. So that's how to do it the hard way. I could automatically track that shape and all that other jazz like that. But I just really wanted to do it that way because I think it's just so cool. So let's look at a couple of additional filters. And these poor kids, I'm going to just beat them up here. But so we have all kinds of things like automatic dirt removal. We have the patch replacer if I wanted to duplicate. Like, what if I wanted to have two copies of him, right? Okay, I'm totally off script here, so I have no idea if this is going to work. But, maybe I want to have a second copy of him. Okay, so there you go. It's great when you're making like armadas of spaceships and things like that. So we've also got some cool new ones like analog damage. So I can say, oh, make this look like a 1960s television set. Or maybe you grew up in the 80s. TVs were a little different. Or, the 90s things were getting better. And then, of course, there was the really shitty VHS. Now, you can go in, you can adjust the restless foot height and the offset and jitter and all kinds of stuff. So we can make video look great, and we can make it look like crap too. So whatever creative needs you have, we can satisfy them. I'm pretty sure of it. All right. So that's just a quick sort of tour through some of the stuff that we've got going on in Resolve this year. So we don't believe in subscriptions. I love ending on that question because I often forget about it. But yeah, no subscriptions, and we have never, ever charged for an upgrade. So just give us $300.
Thanks. So please thank Paul Saccone.